Hi, this is Dr. Mamata KR, Assistant Professor, Government First Grade College, Tiptur. Today I am going to explain about the problem on material variance. This is the problem, the first one. Calculate material yield variance from the information given below. Particulars, standard and actual. Material X 2000 kgs at rupees 5, rupees 1000, 200 kgs at rupees 5, rupees 1000. Material Y standard 500 kgs at rupees 3, rupees 1500. Actual 500 kgs at rupees 3, rupees 1500. 700 kgs and 700 kgs less wastage 75 kgs under the actual 100 kgs. So now 625 kgs, the total amount rupees 2500. 600 kgs rupees 2500. This is the problem. So using this all information, you calculate material yield variance. So here they have to given the informations about the standard quantity, standard price and the standard cost, about the material X and the actual quantity, actual price and actual cost of the material X, and standard quantity, standard price and standard cost of the material Y, and the actual quantity, actual price and actual cost of the material Y. So here the total quantity of the standard quantity are 700 kgs. So from this 700 kgs they are deducted wastage, that is the 75 kgs. So now the balanced kgs or the standard quantities are 625 kg. So here the standard cost rupees 2500. So in the actual quantity, the total actual quantity are 700 kgs. From the 700 kgs they are deducted wastage 100 kg. So now the balanced kgs are 600 kgs. The total actual cost rupees 2500. So using this all information, you calculate the material yield variance. So let's see how to solve this problem. So this is the solution. Here we calculate the material yield variance. For the calculation of this material yield variance, we are using the formula as actual loss, actual input minus standard loss and actual input into average standard price per unit. So this formula are used to calculate the material yield variance. So here the actual loss, actual input minus standard loss and actual input. So this information are given in the problem. But the average standard price per unit, the average standard price per unit has not given the information about that in the problem. So in the average standard price per unit ಏನಿದೆ ಇದರ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಯಾವುದೇ ಡೈರೆಕ್ಟ್ ಇನ್ಫಾರ್ಮೇಷನ್ ಅನ್ನು ಅವರು ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿಲ್ಲ. ಹಾಗಾಗಿ ನಾವೇ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಕ್ಯಾಲ್ಕುಲೇಷನ್ಸ್ ಅನ್ನ ಮಾಡ್ಕೋಬೇಕಾಗುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ದಿಸ್ ಇಸ್ ಕ್ಯಾಲ್ಕುಲೇಟೆಡ್ ಆಸ್ average standard price per unit is equal to total cost divided by standard output. So here the total cost amount of the standard price, that is the standard, the total cost, that is the rupees 2500. This is the total standard cost. And the standard output, the standard output means it is the 625 kg. ಇಲ್ಲಿ total cost 2500 rupees ಇದೆ, standard output 625 kgs. So now the average standard price per unit are 2500 divided by 625. Here rupees 4 per unit. Now we calculate the material yield variance. The actual loss, actual input are 100 kgs minus the standard loss and actual input, that is the 75 kgs, into the average standard price per unit rupees 4. So now the actual losses are 100 and the standard losses are 75 into average standard price per unit are rupees 4. So 100 minus 75 into 4. So now that is the 25 into 4 rupees 100. So here it shows the positive figure. So that's why it is called as the favorable. So ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಪ್ಲಸ್ ಫಿಗರ್ಸ್ ಇರೋದ್ರಿಂದ ನಾವು ಇದನ್ನ favorable ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ. If it is in minus, then it will called as the adverse. So this is the calculation of material yield variance. And the next problem, problem 2. Given the following information, calculate material cost variance, material price variance, material mix variance, material usage variance, and material yield variance. Materials, standard information, that is the standard quantity, standard price, and standard cost or standard amount. Actual quantity, rate means price, amount or cost. That is the actual quantity, actual price, and the actual cost. So the first one, that is the material X, the quantity 500, rate 5, amount 2500, actual quantity 300, actual rate 5, and actual cost 1500. And the next material Y, the quantity, the standard quantity are 400, standard rate 4, standard amount 1600, actual quantity 600, actual rate 4, actual amount 2400. And the next one, the material Z, standard quantity 300, standard rate 3, standard amount 900, actual quantity 400, actual rate 3, actual amount 1200. So now the total standard quantity are 1200, total actual quantity 1300 less 10% normal loss under the standard 120 less actual loss under the actual quantity 220. So now the standard quantities are 1080. The total standard cost 5000. Total actual quantity 1080 and total actual cost or actual amount 5100. So this is the information. So using this all information, you calculate material cost variance, material price variance, material mix variance, material usage variance, and material yield variance. And the next, that is the solution. First, we calculate the material cost variance. The material cost variance is calculated by using the formula as the standard cost minus actual cost. The standard cost means the standard quantity into standard price minus actual quantity into actual price. So now first we calculate the material cost variance for the material X. So here for the material X, the standard quantity are 500 and the standard price rupees 5 minus the actual quantity are 300 and the actual price rupees 5. So now 500 into 5, 2500 minus 300 into 5, 1500. So 2500 minus 1500 rupees 1000. So here the standard cost are more than the actual cost. So it is called as the favorable. So that amount, the material cost variance for the material X rupees 1000 favorable. And the next we calculate the material cost variance for the material Y. So here the material Y, the standard quantity are 400, the standard price are rupees 4 minus the actual quantity are 600 into actual price are rupees 4. So 400 into 4, 1600 minus 600 into 4, 2400. So here the actual cost amount are more than the standard cost. So that's why it will become the adverse. So rupees 800 adverse, it is the material cost variance for the material Y. And the next two, for the calculation of material Z. So here the standard quantity are 300 into the standard price rupees 3 and the actual quantity are 400, actual price rupees 3. So now 900 minus 1200, 300 into 3, 900, 400 into 3, 1200. So here the actual cost are more than the standard cost. So it is called as the adverse. So 1200 minus 900, so rupees 300, it is the adverse. So this is the calculation of material cost variance. And the next we calculate the total material cost variance. Means the 1000 for the material X, that is the favorable, rupees 800 for the material Y, that is the adverse, and rupees 300 of the material Z, it is also adverse. So here the total amount of the adverse are more than the favorable amount. So that is the 800 plus 300, 1100. So minus 1000 rupees. So now the total material cost variance rupees 100 adverse. So ಇಲ್ಲಿ favorable amount ಗಿಂತ adverse total amount ಏನಿದೆ ಅದೇ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಇರೋದ್ರಿಂದ ಇಲ್ಲಿ total material cost variance ಕೂಡ ಏನಾಗಿರುತ್ತೆ adverse ಆಗಿರುತ್ತೆ. And the next we calculate the material price variance. The material price variance are calculated by using the formula as the actual quantity into standard price minus actual price. So first we calculate to the material X. So for the material X, here the actual quantity are the 300 kgs and the standard price rupees 5 and the actual price rupees 5. So 300 into 5 minus 5. So it means that 300 into 0. So here the material X price variance are 0. And the next two, for the material Y. So here the actual quantity are 600 and the standard price rupees 4 and the actual price is also rupees 4. So 600 into 4 minus 4. So 4 minus 4 or 0. It is multiplied with the 600. So there is also an 0. So now the material price variance of the material Y is the 0. And the next for the material Z. Here the actual quantity are 400. The standard price rupees 3 and the actual price is also 3. So now the 400 into 3 minus 3. 3 minus 3, that is the 0. It is multiplied with the 400. So there is also an 0. So now the total material price variance is also 0. And the next one, that is the calculation of material mix variance. This material mix variance is calculated by using the formula as the standard price into revised standard mix of actual input minus actual mix. So here the standard mix are in the problem. So the standard price that is given in the problem and the revised standard mix of actual input is calculated by using the information what they are given in the problem. So ಇಲ್ಲಿ revised standard mix of actual input ಅನ್ನು ಅವರು ಡೈರೆಕ್ಟ್ ಆಗಿ ಹೇಳಿಲ್ಲ, ಹಾಗಾಗಿ ನಾವು ಅದನ್ನ ಕ್ಯಾಲ್ಕುಲೇಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೋಬೇಕಾಗುತ್ತೆ. It is calculated by using the formula as the standard mix divided by total standard input into total actual input. So here the standard mix of the material X. First here we are find out for the material X. So here the standard mix means that is the standard quantity, that is the 500 divided by total standard input. The total standard input, that is the 1200 into total actual input, that is the 1300. So ಇಲ್ಲಿ standard mix of material X 500 quantities ಇದೆ. Total standard input, that is the 1200. That is the standard input. And the total actual input, that is the 1300. So 500 divided by 1200 into 1300. So now the revised standard mix of actual input are 541.61 kgs. And the next for the material Y. So here the standard mix are 400 divided by total standard input are 1200 into total actual input are 1300. So now 400 divided by 1200 into 1300. The revised standard mix of actual input for the material Y are 433.33 kgs. And next for the material Z. So here the standard mix are 300 quantity divided by total standard input 1200 into total actual input are 1300. So 300 divided by 1200 into 1300. So 325 kgs are the revised standard mix of actual input for the material Z. So now we calculate the material mix variance. The material mix variance for the material X. Here the standard price are rupees 5. For the material X, the standard price are rupees 5 and the revised standard mix of actual input for the material X, that is the 541.61 kgs minus the actual mix. The actual mix means that is the actual quantity, that is the 300. So 5 into means the standard price 5, revised standard mix of actual input, that is calculated here. that is the 541.67 minus the actual mix. Actual mix means that is the actual quantity. So 5 into 541.67 minus 300. So now the material mix variance for the material X rupees 1208.35 favorable. And the next for the material Y. So here for the material Y, the standard price rupees 4 into the revised standard mix of actual input, that is the 433.33 kgs minus the actual mix, that is actual quantity or 600. So 4 into 433.33 minus 600. So now the material mix variance of the material Y or rupees 666.68 adverse. So because here the actual mix are more than the revised standard mix of actual input. So that's why it is called as the adverse. And the next for the material Z. So for the material Z, here the standard price or rupees 3 into the revised standard mix of actual input 325 kgs minus actual mix. The actual mix means that is the actual quantity 400. So 3 into 325 minus 400. So now the material mix variance of the material Z rupees 225. So here also it is also adverse. So now the total material mix variance, that is the rupees 316.67 favorable, because here the favorable is more than the total of adverse. So that is 316.67 favorable. That is the total material mix variance. Next, we calculate the material usage variance. The material usage variance are calculated as by using the formula as the standard price into standard quantity minus actual quantity. So here first we calculate for the material X. The standard price for the material X are rupees 5 and the standard quantity are 500 minus actual quantity are 300. So here the 5 into 500 minus 300. So here the standard quantities are more than the actual quantity. So it is called as the favorable. So now the 5 into 500 minus 300 means 200. So 5 into 200 rupees 1000 favorable. And next for the material Y. So here the standard price rupees 4. The standard quantity are 400 and actual quantities are 600. So 4 into 400 minus 600. Here the actual quantity are more than the standard quantity. So it is called as the adverse. So 4 into minus 200. So it shows the negative figure rupees minus 800 adverse. ಸೊ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಆಕ್ಚುಯಲ್ ಕ್ವಾಂಟಿಟಿ ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾಂಡರ್ಡ್ ಕ್ವಾಂಟಿಟಿಗಿಂತ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಇರೋದ್ರಿಂದ ಇದನ್ನು ನಾವು ಅಡ್ವರ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೇವೆ. ಅಂಡ್ ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಫಾರ್ ದ ಮೆಟೀರಿಯಲ್ ಝೆಡ್. ಸೊ ಹಿಯರ್ ದ ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾಂಡರ್ಡ್ ಪ್ರೈಸ್ ಆರ್ rupees 3 and the standard quantity are 300 and the actual quantities are 400. So 3 into 300 minus 400. So 300 minus 400 are minus 100. So it is also a negative figure. So 3 into minus 100 rupees minus 300, that is also adverse. So now we take the total material usage variance, that is rupees 100 adverse, because the total of the adverse are more than the favorable amount. the adverse are 800 plus 300, 1100 minus the favorable amount 1000. So now the total are rupees 100 adverse. And the next, there is the calculation of material yield variance. This material yield variance are calculated by using the formula as the average standard price into standard loss on actual input minus actual loss. So this is the formula for the calculation of material yield variance. So first we find out the average standard price. So standard loss and the actual loss, they have to given the informations in the problem. They have to provide it that. But the average standard price in the problem does not provide that information. That's why we are calculated here by using the formula as total standard cost divided by total standard output. So here the total standard cost are 5000. The total standard cost are 5000 divided by total standard output. Here that is the total standard output are 1080. So 5000 divided by 1080. So now the average standard price are rupees 4.63. Here we are calculate the average standard price. That's why here we are considered only informations about the standard. So that is the total standard cost divided by total standard output. The average standard price are rupees 4.63. So next,